Alright, so this is going to be our lesson on Latin pronunciation. We're going to focus on areas where pronunciation is different from English and where it's significantly different. There are a lot of places where it's slightly different, but I'm just going to hit on the big ones. So we're going to talk about a couple of consonants that are really different in Latin pronunciation than they are in English. So the first one is the letter C itself, which is going to be pronounced like the C in the word consonants. It's going to be pronounced hard, is what you call that, because it's k, rather than a soft C, like in the word cider, which you can almost imagine being an S there. So that's soft, cider. So we're not going to go for that. We're going to go for a hard C instead, like in the word cat, which you can almost imagine being our word K. Right? Cat. It's pronounced the same way. So it's always going to be that hard k. Never is it going to be s, a soft, hard. It's going to be hard. Same with the letter G, which is also going to be hard. And the difference between a soft G and a hard G is like in goose. You get the g. A soft G would be like in the word gentle, where it's more like j. So we're not going for the j, we're going for the g. It's hard. Alright, let's see, well, that's not it. Gotta move here. Perfect. Oh, that's beautiful. Awesome. Alright. So what's next? A tricky one is the consonant I. Because I, as we know, is also a vowel. And in a lot of respects, it's kind of like our letter Y in English is a vowel, but it's also sometimes a consonant. And it's a consonant when before a vowel. So when it's in front of another vowel. So we'll see our Latin word yam. And instead of pronouncing this as two separate syllables, the I and then the am, so instead of yam, we're going to pronounce the I kind of like a Y. So the I kind of equals the Y sound, actually. And yam is going to be pronounced like yam, like so. Alright. Move that away. And then finally, the last consonant that really deserves some focus is the letter V, which in Latin is going to be pronounced like the letter W. So we have our word in English, villa, which is a big house. So this is actually a Latin word, and it's spelled the same exact way, villa, although you'd never pronounce it villa. Being a good student of Latin, you will pronounce it villa. So as if the V were a W. It's an obvious one, it stands out, but it's difficult to internalize. So it might take you a little while to get used to, but in time you will have that down, no problem. So now let's think about, there are some consonants that are worth noting because they don't appear in Latin. Among them, the letter J itself. So at some point in the Middle Ages, someone grew tired of having I as a consonant and I as a vowel. So they split them and they turned the I consonant into a J, which is where we get our letter J. But in classical Latin, you'll never see the letter J appear. We also don't have the letter W. That sound was covered by the V. we really don't see a lot of the letter K, don't see a lot of the letter Y, and we don't see a lot of the letter Z. These here are Greek, and you'll occasionally see them in words that come into Latin through Greek, but they don't appear a lot. So those ones are rare at best and non-existent at worst. So, two vowels. The big issue with vowels is something called macron. And a macron is a mark that changes. It can make vowels short or long. So a macron actually will make a vowel long. And what a macron looks like is we have our letter A, and if we put a line above it, we have made a macron, and we've made that long. So that's long, and then an A that is missing that macron is short. And there are a few places. Most of the time, the pronunciation of long vowels and short vowels is it's a subtle difference that we won't focus on so much in Latin 1. It's helpful when you're reading poetry in higher level Latin classes, but in Latin 1 we don't need to necessarily focus on too many of the differences, except we will focus on the difference between a long A and a short A. So a short A is going to be pronounced like like in the word alike. So if I was, I'd say maybe that's whereas a long A is what you say when you go to the doctor's office. You have it in the word like father, and it's going to be more like ah. So it's father versus like versus ah. So there's one of your big differences. Another one is going to be the letter E, which when short is pronounced like like in pet, and when it's long, it's pronounced like the A in the word date. So it's going to be like more like, let's see, how would I write this out? Maybe that's the way that we write it out. Maybe, well, if you were Canadian, you might just say A instead of there. Yes, it's subtle. If you don't get it right now, if you don't necessarily hear the difference, that's okay. So that's E, and then the other really important one is going to be the letter I, which as a vowel definitely has a big difference between a long I and a short I. The short I is going to be like in our English word sip, It's going to be hard for me to write. We'll just say it's like And then the long I is going to be like the sound of the two E's in sleep. E. Say that that's two E's. E. So there's a big difference. Long I, E. Short I, And then I'd say that's probably the three big vowels that have differences between long with the macron, and short without the macron. So that's what we can focus on now. Of vowels. in Latin called diphthongs, which are actually a combination of two vowels. And there are 6 or 7 different diphthongs, but there are ones that we see more often than others. So one of the main ones that we see is A and E together. And that's going to be pronounced like the letter I, if you say I, or like the end of the word sky. We also see the letters AU, which are going to be pronounced like ow, or like in the word how. That's good. And we see the letters EI that are going to be pronounced like A, like in the word say. All right? And just for reference, all of this is located on page 287 in your textbook, titled The Pronunciation of Latin. I'm using examples from the book, and I'm highlighting some of the more important things from that section. All right, and now I'm going to highlight something in terms of... All right, and now finally we're going to talk about pronunciation. And the golden rule of pronouncing words in Latin is that you pronounce every syllable. So most of the time a syllable is going to consist of a vowel, sometimes just a vowel alone, if it's at the beginning of a word, but normally it consists of a vowel and a consonant. And actually that's backwards. So normally the consonant will be before the vowel. So an example is the word nomine, which means name in Latin. And so the consonant is going to come before the vowel. You have no, me, nay. And unlike in English where we have silent E's, we obviously don't need to worry about that in Latin because we're going to pronounce every syllable. So you say the nay with the helpful E being pronounced there. So that's basically it. We're going to get tons of practice with this in class, including working on pronouncing Mica Mica Parvostella, which you should have the handout of, and which I'll record a separate audio version of, so that you can listen to that and hear how that's done. But in the meantime, that's the crash course on Latin pronunciation, and I'll see you in class later. Thanks for listening.